There's a persistent theory in this country that the mobile home parks are the only truly spiritual architecture, mostly because they are so often called back to the sky. While a brick house stands in silent defiance of the elements, a trailer park remains humble, waiting for a stray gust of wind to remind the neighbors that the mobile park was never just a marketing term. Unknown author, and one of my favorite quotes yet.
Atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where my double wild feels empty when my baby has gone away. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. So good to have you with us tonight. And you know what I always say about our audience, Jim Eagle? It is as good looking as it is intellectually enlightened. And it's not just me saying that. Many experts have said that. Many eminent scientists, the people whose job it is to know about such things. You're probably wondering right now what sort of field guide I have brought you tonight. And I am glad you asked, because tonight we are field guiding a bit of American social history that hardly ever gets talked about, except when people make jokes about it, because that is the peculiar cultural station that the trailer park occupies in our national cultural consciousness and lexicon. It is, to put it plainly, the only type of poverty-based humor that has no stigma attached to it. You can make trailer park jokes in just about any venue, in just about any type of company, without anybody alleging a hate crime. In fact, people who live in trailer parks are oftentimes just as prone to tell trailer park jokes and to laugh at trailer park jokes. You might even be watching us right now from a trailer park, and if you are, I have no doubt it's the most upscale, most well-manicured trailer park anywhere on God's green earth. But I got to thinking about this particular slice of history because it's actually got a lot of twists and turns for a tale that's only barely 100 years long. And the idea of a domicile with wheels attached has gone from an opulent status symbol only able to be afforded by the super rich to something a bit more common and a bit more sketchy, and then back to a patriotic wartime necessity, and then back to something a lot more sketchy and a lot more stigmatized and a lot more widely and freely mocked. But as the nation's largest sector of non-subsidized lower-income housing, should anybody be laughing at all? Well, of course they should. Let's not be silly. There will be plenty of low-hanging fruit trailer park jokes to be had here, because what do we look like? A bunch of barbarians? No, we do not. But there will also be, because this is what we do around here, a fully formed historical perspective, artisanally brewed just for the benefit of your cerebellum. So without any further preambular prattling, Here, ladies and gentlemen, we present for your kind edification in the enduring interest of the public mental hygiene, Curmudgeon's Field Guide to Trailer Parks. Prologue, the joke that 20 million people live inside. There is a particular rhythm to a trailer park joke. You can feel it coming long before it lands. The setup is usually cheap beer, a broken down car on cinder blocks, a yard ornament that used to be an appliance. The punchline is often about teeth, specifically the lack of them. It's one of the last socially acceptable American slurs that still gets a full-throated laugh. Politicians use it, sitcoms use it, reality television has built small empires out of it. Even people who live in trailer parks use it as both a shield and a sword. And yet, about 20 million Americans live in mobile homes. That's roughly 6% of the country. If trailer parks were a state, they would be somewhere in population between New York and Florida. They are not a fringe. They are not a punchline. They are an enormous, largely invisible housing sector that sits at the fault line of the American dream. Because that's what this is really about, a dream, not just of home ownership, but of mobility. The ability to move freely, to follow opportunity, to reinvent yourself somewhere warmer, cheaper, freer. The mobile home began as exactly that sort of symbol of freedom without sacrifice. In its earliest incarnation, it was a luxury good, custom built for wealthy travelers who wanted to rough it without surrendering silverware, or servants. Somewhere along the way, that symbol flipped. Mobility became rootlessness. Affordability became evidence of failure. The shining aluminum promise of the open road hardened into vinyl siding and zoning restrictions. What began as leisure for the rich became housing of last resort for the working classes. This is the story of how that happened, how an emblem of opulence became shorthand for hopelessness, and what it says about a country where millions of people live inside a joke and can't afford not to. Chapter 1, Before the Trailer Park, Nomadism as Luxury. Long before the phrase trailer park conjured images of plastic flamingos engaged in low-level turf wars, mobile living in America was a hobby for people who had summer homes that they were actively avoiding. In the late 19th century, wealthy Americans developed a fascination with something they called house cars, ornate horse-drawn carriages outfitted with beds and writing desks and fine china cabinets, and presumably a faint sense of superiority. These were not survival vehicles. These were rolling parlors. Think less economic necessity and more Downton Abbey, but everyone has hay fever. The interiors were upholstered, curtained, carved, and polished to within an inch of their mahogany lives. If you were going to experience the rugged American frontier, you were going to do it with monogrammed napkins. This was the Gilded Age, when industrial fortunes were being minted at a speed that would make a tech startup blush and shame. The same class of Americans building Newport cottages with 70 rooms decided that what the wilderness really needed was a mobile chandelier. Travel was not about escape, it was about display. You weren't fleeing anything. You were touring the nation like it was your recently acquired estate. By the early 1900s, the automobile arrived, and with it, the first motorized campers. Wealthy hobbyists commissioned custom trailers to be pulled behind early touring cars. Magazines breathlessly documented these contraptions, celebrating their ingenuity and their refinement. Mobility was aspirational. To be on the road meant you had the leisure time to do that. And that's the crucial thing. Early mobile living was voluntary. It was seasonable. It was fashionable. If you lived in a mobile home in 1905, it was because you were adventurous in the way that only rich people can afford to be. The irony is almost too neat. The housing form that would later signal economic precarity began as a luxury accessory, essentially a yacht for landlocked aristocrats. The American trailer was born not in desperation, but in decadence. Chapter 2, Tin Can Tourists and the Democratization of the Road. If Chapter 1 was Succession but with horses, Chapter 2 is where Henry Ford shows up and ruins exclusivity for everyone. The Model T did not just put America on wheels, it put middle-class America on wheels. By the 1910s and 20s, automobile ownership was no longer the eccentric hobby of monocled industrialists. It was increasingly normal. And once regular people had cars, they immediately began strapping questionable wooden boxes to the back of them and heading toward Florida. Thus was born auto camping. Early trailers were often homemade affairs, plywood, canvas, optimism, and nails that had not been consulted about their long-term career goals. Companies soon emerged to standardize production, but the DIY spirit remained strong. These were not rolling parlors with velvet drapes. These were rolling declarations that you could, in fact, fry bacon in a ditch if properly motivated. One of the most famous groups of this era called themselves the Tin Can Tourists, a name that sounds like either a vaudeville troupe or a minor league baseball team. Founded in 1919, they wintered in Florida parking lots and fairgrounds, living in close quarters and proudly displaying the empty food cans that signaled their self-sufficiency. Membership required car ownership and a certain respectable code of conduct. This was key. They were not vagrants. They were motorists. There's a difference, and they insisted on it. Municipalities took notice. Towns began establishing public campgrounds with basic amenities to accommodate these travelers. For a moment, mobile living was civic-minded and wholesome, like a Norman Rockwell painting, but everybody has a carburetor. But democratization always carries tension with it. When mobility stops being exclusive, it stops being glamorous. As more Americans took to the road, some for pleasure, some because rents were rising and jobs were scarce, the line between tourist and transient began to blur. And in America, that line has always been policed with suspicion. The road was about to get a lot less recreational. Chapter 3, the Depression and the Birth of the Trailerite. And then the economy collapsed. It is one thing to strap a kitchenette to your Buick because you crave citrus in January. It is another thing entirely to do it because the bank has your house and the factory has your job. The Great Depression did not invent mobile living, but it profoundly changed its vibe. By the early 1930s, trailers were no longer just recreational novelties. They were fallback plans. As unemployment soared and foreclosures mounted, increasing numbers of Americans took to the road not in search of sunshine, but in search of work. To California, to Michigan, anywhere with the rumor of a paycheck. The trailer became a kind of rolling lifeboat in a sea of economic wreckage. Manufacturers noticed. Production increased. Designs became more standardized, more affordable, more practical. Trailers grew longer, sleeker, more self-contained. The industry began marketing them not as camping equipment, but as housing. Small, efficient, modern. You didn't need a foundation. All you needed were wheels and a bit of nerve. But perception shifted just as quickly. The word trailerite entered the lexicon, and it was not a compliment. Newspapers described trailer camps with a raised eyebrow. Local officials fretted about sanitation, morality, and the unnerving fact that these people could simply leave. Mobility, once romantic, began to be read as rootlessness. If you could move at any time, could you ever be trusted to belong? Cities began passing ordinances regulating where trailers could park and for how long. Temporary camps sprang up on the edges of town, literally and socially. What had been voluntary adventure was becoming visible precarity. The trailer was no longer a toy of the wealthy or even a hobby of the thrifty. It was shelter in an era when shelter was slipping out of reach. And when mobility becomes a survival strategy instead of a pastime, the public mood hardens. The road, once a symbol of cheerful freedom, was starting to look more and more like a last resort. And the federal government was about to discover just how many Americans were living at its margins and on wheels. Chapter 4, War on Wheels. If the Depression made trailers respectable out of necessity, World War II made them patriotic. By 1941, the United States was ramping up industrial production at a scale that made the previous decade look like a mere rehearsal. Shipyards in California, aircraft plants in Washington, munitions factories in Michigan, millions of workers were suddenly required in very specific places that often did not have nearly enough housing. You could either build homes fast or you could build bombers fast, and America correctly chose bombers. Enter our friend the humble trailer. The federal government, never previously in the business of endorsing aluminum sardine cans as civic infrastructure, began deploying mobile homes as emergency worker housing. Thousands of trailers were shipped to defense hubs and arranged into neat rows near factories. These weren't whimsical tourist camps anymore. They were war effort villages. If you squinted, they looked almost suburban, just a bit shinier and with more rivets. Now, for many working families, this was their first experience living in a trailer, and it came wrapped in moral clarity. You weren't drifting. You were building liberty ships. You weren't rootless. You were rotational labor. The stigma softened when mobility aligned with national purpose. Manufacturers expanded rapidly. Designs improved. Plumbing, insulation, built-in appliances. Trailers became more livable, more domestic, and crucially, they became more normalized. Photographs from this era show tidy interiors, women at compact stoves, children doing homework at fold-down tables. It was small, yes, but so was a lot of wartime America. Ration books have a way of equalizing square footage, but here is the quiet twist. Temporary housing has a habit of lingering. After the war, many of these units didn't disappear. Workers didn't magically teleport back to affordable neighborhoods that didn't exist. Emergency had passed, but the housing shortage and then it went to the movies. Factories that had been cranking out bombers pivoted to cranking out consumer goods. Suburbs bloomed like aggressively beige mushrooms. The GI Bill helped millions of Americans buy homes with yards, driveways, and the sacred promise of a grill assembled incorrectly on the first try. Meanwhile, one of the most popular motion pictures of 1953 was called The Long, Long Trailer, in which Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz spend an entire feature film trying to tow a 32-foot New Moon trailer over a mountain behind a yellow convertible. It was a 100-minute metaphor for the American marriage. Expensive, difficult to steer, and prone to rolling off a cliff if you didn't have enough torque. But more importantly, it sold the dream. The trailers of the new post-war America were no longer merely wartime sardine cans. They were a Technicolor palace for the Eisenhower era. This was the birth of the 10-wide. In 1954, a man named Elmer Fry, who presumably looked at an 8-foot-wide trailer and felt claustrophobic in a way that only a Midwesterner can, decided he was going to build a 10-foot-wide model. This was a revolutionary act of architectural rebellion. At 10 feet wide, you could actually fit a sofa and a TV in the same room without having to park the ottoman in the bathtub. There was just one tiny, hilarious catch. A 10-wide was legally too big to tow with a family car. You needed a professional hauler and a permit. This is the great mobile paradox. The moment the mobile home became truly livable was the exact moment that it stopped being mobile. The industry leaned into the absurdity. They stopped calling them trailers. That was too dusty, a bit too grapes of wrath, and started calling them mobile homes. They built mobile home estates with names like Whispering Palms and Shady Acres Estates, featuring swimming pools, shuffleboard courts, and social calendars that would make a cruise ship director weep. And parenthetically, that's another feature of American post-war residential marketing practices. We developed the peculiar habit of using the word estates with as much absurdist irony as possible. If you saw an advertisement for a place with estates in the name, you could be assured of two things. One, there are no estates there, and two, it's probably not the kind of place where you want to go after dark. For a middle-class retiree or a young veteran, this was the ultimate low-maintenance lifestyle. You had a detached house with a lawn, but you didn't have to deal with the soul-crushing permanence of a foundation. It was the suburbia light for people who wanted to live like Frank Lloyd Wright, but on a Tupperware budget. Manufacturers dropped the word trailer whenever possible. Too many depression vibes, too much grapes of wrath, not enough chrome optimism. These were mobile homes now, as the industry was always quick to remind the public. By the 1950s, they were longer, sometimes up to 40 feet. They were wider, and they were increasingly luxurious. Picture pastel appliances, built-in banquettes, knotty pine cabinetry, and promotional brochures featuring improbably cheerful women holding Jell-O molds like trophies of modernity. And it has to be said, many of those Jell-O molds contained things that should never be anywhere near Jell-O. At least, that's what the walnuts and the carrots told me. Now, if the suburban ranch house was the American dream with a foundation, the mobile home was the American dream with axles. And crucially, it was cheaper. For working and lower middle-class families squeezed out of traditional home ownership, particularly in the rapidly inflating post-war market, the mobile home offered something radical: ownership. You could buy one outright for a fraction of a site-built house. No landlord, no upstairs neighbor practicing the trombone at 11 p.m., just you, your Formica, and the open road, or at least the open lot. Trailer parks evolved too, no longer ad hoc camps. Many became organized communities with paved pads, laundry facilities, even playgrounds. Brochures promised neighborly living and modern convenience. They looked suspiciously like suburbs that had been gently compressed in the wash. But here is where the tension crept in. The same zoning boards that welcomed split level homes often frowned at mobile ones. Municipalities began restricting where these parks could be built. The message was subtle, but unmistakable. Mobility was fine, just as long as it stays over there. The post-war boom made mobile homes mainstream. Millions bought in. They were affordable, practical, and, at least for a moment, optimistic. But prosperity has a hierarchy. And in America, even our dreams come with square footage requirements. Chapter 6, From Trailer to Mobile Home to Manufactured Housing. If the 1950s were about optimism, the 60s and 70s were more about paperwork. By now, the industry understood something crucial. Words matter. Trailer suggested impermanence, maybe a suspicious uncle. Mobile home, on the other hand, sounded sturdier, more domestic. By the early 1970s, another rebrand was well underway. Manufactured housing. Same basic idea, but now it sounded like it came with schematics and a clipboard. And in 1976, the federal government made all of this official. The HUD Code, the first and only national building standard for manufactured homes, established uniform safety and construction requirements, wind loads, fire resistance, insulation, electrical systems, all that fun stuff. If your mental image of a mobile home involved it dissolving in a stiff breeze, the HUD Code was designed to argue otherwise. Here's the irony. Just as mobile homes became more regulated, more standardized, more structurally sound, they also became less mobile. Units grew larger. Single wides gave way to double wides, which required convoys and mild prayer in order to transport. Once installed, they were rarely ever moved again. The wheels often came off, the axles were removed, skirting concealed the undercarriage like a Victorian table embarrassed about its legs. In practice, these were houses. They had bedrooms, mortgages, children doing algebra at the kitchen table, but legally and financially, they occupied a strange sort of limbo. Most were titled not as real estate, but as personal property, like cars. That meant chattel loans instead of traditional mortgages. That means higher interest rates, faster depreciation. You could own your home and still watch it lose value the same way a sedan does immediately when you drive it off the lot. Meanwhile, zoning laws tightened. Many cities banned new mobile home parks outright or restricted them to the industrial edges and the rural margins. The message hardened. You may live this way, just not anywhere near us. By the late 70s, the transformation was complete. These homes were permanent in practice, precarious in law, and increasingly segregated by policy. They no longer symbolized motion, they symbolized containment. Chapter 7, Stigma Settles In. By the 1980s, the American economy was rearranging itself with the delicacy of a demolition crew. Factories closed, steel towns rusted, family farms consolidated. And in many places, the most affordable path to something resembling home ownership was still a manufactured home on rented land, which is when the jokes really took off. Trailer trash entered the cultural bloodstream with a vengeance. It became shorthand for a whole imagined taxonomy of sins: laziness, ignorance, moral failure, decorative hubcaps nailed to exterior walls. Hollywood obliged. Talk shows obliged. Country singers occasionally tried to humanize things, but even those attempts came with a wink. The trailer park became a ready-made stage set. Just add a screen door that slams itself and a character named Earl. Here's what makes stigma so efficient. It compresses structural forces into personal blame. Deindustrialization, wage stagnation, exclusionary zoning, predatory lending, those are all complicated things. But laughing at somebody's above-ground pool, that is wonderfully simple. The mobile home park became a cultural decoy, distracting from the policies that had funneled people there in the first place. And yet, inside these communities were retirees on fixed incomes, young families saving for something better, veterans, service workers, people doing exactly what the post-war script had told them to do. Buy what you can afford and mind your damn business. Many parks were and are quiet, orderly, neighborly. Block parties exist. So do PTA meetings. So does Pride. But the structural trap was tightening. Residents typically owned their homes, but not the land beneath them. If the landowner raised the rent, you could, in theory, move your house, but only in theory. In practice, moving a double wide costs thousands of dollars and requires permits, escorts, and a willingness to watch your living room sway down the highway like a reluctant parade float. Stigma had settled, and economics was about to weaponize it. Chapter 8, The Business of the Dirt Beneath. If you want to understand modern trailer parks, you don't start with the homes, you start with the dirt. By the 1990s and accelerating into the 2000s, investors noticed something that was hiding in plain sight. Mobile home parks produced steady cash flow. The tenants, the residents, almost never left, not because they didn't want to necessarily, but because moving a manufactured home is expensive, logistically complicated, and sometimes physically impossible once it's been in place for a sufficient period of time. Wheels removed, axles gone, porch attached. It is mobile in the same way that the Titanic was seafaring. This is what economists politely call a captive market. Private equity firms, real estate investment trusts, and small-scale landlords began purchasing parks, often from aging mom-and-pop owners. The business model was elegantly simple. Buy the land, raise the lot rent incrementally, keep maintenance minimal, rely on the fact that tenants can't easily relocate their homes. The asset appreciating in value was not the structure with the vinyl siding, it was the acreage underneath it. Meanwhile, the homes themselves behaved financially much like used cars. Because many were titled as personal property, they depreciated rather than appreciating. Owners could spend decades paying off a unit that would never build equity like a site-built house would. They owned an object sitting on land they did not control, financed with loans that often carried higher interest rates than conventional mortgages. It is a uniquely American arrangement. Hyper-individual home ownership balanced delicately atop somebody else's soil. None of this means every park is predatory. Some remain family-run. Some transition to resident-owned cooperatives, where neighbors collectively purchase the land and stabilize the rents. But the broader trend is unmistakable. Trailer parks became not just communities, but investment vehicles, praised in trade publications for their recession-resistant qualities. Stable returns, after all, are easier when your customers cannot leave. By the early 21st century, the trailer park had completed another transformation. It was no longer just stigmatized culturally, it was optimized financially. Chapter 9, Reality TV, Politics, and the Entrenchment of the Punchline. By the 2000s, the trailer park was no longer just a housing category, it was a genre. Reality television discovered manufactured housing like an anthropologist who had misplaced their ethics waiver. Cameras lingered on cluttered yards, family disputes, and the one guy who absolutely should not be operating fireworks. Editing did the rest. The trailer park became a visual shorthand. If you needed to signal chaos, you panned across aluminum siding and a satellite dish pointed at the heavens like it was begging for better programming. The joke calcified. Politicians joined in, sometimes subtly, sometimes not. Trailer park became rhetorical code for the forgotten, the uneducated, the aggrieved. It was deployed both as insult and as campaign strategy. Entire voting blocks were described as though they lived exclusively in single wides with skirting held together by hope and zip ties. And here's the strange part. The stigma became participatory. Residents made the jokes too. Self-deprecation, after all, can be armor. If you call yourself trailer trash first, you control the timing. Humor becomes a preemptive strike, but internalized stigma is still stigma. When your home is a punchline, it does something subtle to your sense of belonging. All the while, the underlying math remained unchanged. Manufactured housing was and is one of the largest sources of unsubsidized affordable housing in the United States. Not public housing, not Section 8, just regular people making payments on something they technically own, parked on land that they technically do not. The disconnect widened, culturally mocked, economically essential. By the 2010s, America was deep into a housing affordability crisis. Rents climbed, starter homes evaporated, and the very thing long dismissed as a symbol of failure was quietly becoming one of the last entry points into ownership. The punchline was starting to look a lot less funny. Chapter 10, The Affordable Housing Crisis and the Reluctant Reconsideration. In the 2010s and 20s, housing costs did something impressive. They achieved escape velocity. Home prices soared and rents followed. Zoning laws calcified into museum pieces dedicated to single-family nostalgia. Entire metropolitan areas developed allergic reactions to the phrase multi-unit. And amid this slow-burning emergency, manufactured housing sat off to the side like the kid in class who already knew the answer but stopped raising his hand in 1987. Because here's the inconvenient truth. Modern manufactured homes are safe, energy efficient, and dramatically cheaper per square foot than site-built homes are. They are constructed indoors, protected from weather delays, built to a federal code. You can order one with granite countertops if you're feeling ironic. Urban planners and housing advocates began to reconsider but had long been dismissed. Some cities experimented with allowing manufactured homes on individual lots. A few states preempted local zoning barriers. The YIMBY movement, yes, in my backyard, found itself in the unusual position of defending a housing type previously treated like a zoning contagion. Meanwhile, resident-owned communities gained traction. Nonprofits helped homeowners band together to buy the land beneath them, converting parks into cooperatives. When residents control the dirt, the rents stabilize. The captive market becomes, at least partially, emancipated, but challenges persist. Many parks sit in flood-prone or heat-exposed areas because that is where the land they were built on was cheapest. Financing remains rather inequitable, and stigma, once baked into a culture, does not evaporate just because the spreadsheets make sense. We are left in a peculiar moment. Manufactured housing is simultaneously an object of ridicule and a potential solution. It is both a relic of mid-century optimism and a frontline defense against 21st century unaffordability, which brings us back to mobility. Who has it, who doesn't, and what it costs to stay put. Epilogue. Mobility stalled. At the beginning of the story, mobility was a luxury. Wealthy Americans rolled into the countryside in upholstered carriages to prove they could leave whenever they pleased. Movement signaled freedom, choice, excess. Today, for millions of Americans living in mobile home parks, mobility exists mostly in theory. The wheels are gone. The axles were removed years ago. The house can move, theoretically, but it probably won't. The job might not. The rent definitely will. And still, about 20 million people live there. Retirees, nurses' aides, mechanics, preschool teachers, veterans, kids who will grow up to make the same jokes about trailer parks that everybody else does, because that is the air that we breathe. It is one of the last housing forums in America where you can plausibly own something without already having owned something. What changed wasn't the structure, it was the story. The mobile home began as conspicuous leisure, became practical shelter, evolved into affordable aspiration, and then, through zoning, financing, media, and markets, calcified into caricature. An emblem of freedom turned into a symbol of failure, not because the walls shrank, but because the ladder did. If there is an absurdity here, it is this. We mock one of the only scalable sources of affordable housing that we have. We sneer at the very mechanism that has allowed millions to avoid eviction, overcrowding, or homelessness. We have turned necessity into a narrative. The trailer park is not a joke, it is a barometer. It measures wage stagnation, land policy, credit systems, and our collective discomfort with visible poverty. Mobility once meant you could leave. For many Americans now, and I just lost my prompter, and I'd have no idea what the rest of the monologue says. So thanks for listening to the monologue. Here's Mr. Sasquatch.
That was absolutely brilliant, dude. I wasn't ready.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Good evening,
Hey,
ladies
man.
and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Tonight, we are going to complain about Disney, complain about Marvel, complain about women, and whine like two very petulant small boys that
Well, you got my
had
attention
their
now.
that have had their favorite shows ruined by petulant small girls. Literally the No Ma'am Club from I think we've already screwed this whole pooch, bro. you want
That's
to
never
try to
happened.
wrap that end up?
That must have been an unusually long monologue because I've never had that happen before.
Yeah, you were going you're about 6 minutes over an average.
Okay, yeah, I will make a mental note for next time. Yeah, it got like a little bit, like it faded halfway out, but I could still see it, and then I got in about 10 seconds down the road, and then blank, nothing. That's a real pants down in public moment.
Trailer parks, huh? I got a secret about trailer parks, bro. For about 7 years, I was maintenance man in a trailer park that had about 120 lots in it. And so there's a certain type of person that lives in a trailer park, my friend. Blind, cripple, or crazy, they're all a little off.
Yeah, it's true. But at the same time, there are some places that qualify as trailer parks that are the most pristine places you ever saw. It all kind of depends on who lives there. I mean, the ones that are old folks only, I think, tend to be a little more upscale than the all ages ones. But and I happen to live in a part of the country where I think our percentage of population that lives in trailer parks is larger in general than the national mean, let's say. So, I mean, who the hell doesn't know someone who lives in a trailer park?
I'm not sure about that parks. I didn't grow up in a trailer park. I was adopted by a trailer park. And with no small amount of irony, was it also the trailer park that I ended up being a maintenance man in for like 7 years. And so there is an immense amount of overhead that goes into setting up one of these places. Because of the nature of them, typically the land you get isn't flat, isn't really arranged in a way that makes trailers make sense. And yet these people will bring in freaking bulldozers and make it make sense.
Right. Well, because they often, the places where these parks wound up were often determined quite haphazardly, as I alluded to in the
Yeah.
monologue, of course, because all the local leaders knew was, well, we don't want them taking the good land here in town, so just make sure they're on the other side of the tracks and on the fringes of the industrial area where they won't bother us very much. And that pattern repeated itself hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times all across the country.
I'm
And that's
not sure
pretty,
about any of that, but I can tell you I'm in what I guess you might consider to be a very distant suburb of Atlanta, sort of, about 2 hours away. So it's like out there. At the same time, it's not an overly populated area. It's about 56,000 people in the county. So we just picked up like 12 new trailer parks. I'm thinking the census
dang.
might be a little off. I mean, I ain't no mathematician or nothing, but that seems like an awful lot of growth for an area that hasn't seen a population expansion. Like poof. And I'm talking like in the last
Wait,
3 years.
is it growth or is it gerrymandering? Did the parks already exist
That
and get
is an
gerrymandered into
interesting
it?
question.
That's
I've
what I'm
not
wondering.
considered it. Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
are the parks actually new, or have they just been rolled into a newly drawn version of a district for someone's political convenience?
I had not considered that. They're recent though. These were not previous dwellings, and now there might be 36 in each one of these parks. And they're here's the thing that kind of, I don't know, it makes my brain pan itch. I've worked in several trailer parks and I've never seen uniform trailers in any of them, right? Somebody spent a whole bunch of cheddar to make 300 identical trailers and put them all on these different spots. And I've been a little bit curious about it, you know.
The first time I ever remember seeing large numbers of them that were identical was after Katrina, as I recall.
Yeah, well, this isn't like that. These are the 55 to 60 foot single wides with the peak shingles, relatively nice trailers. As far as, I mean, like I said, I've worked in several trailer parks. I've
Yeah.
seen some fucking trash, and these are not that for visually looking at them. Now, I haven't been inside and like poked at it with my fingers and stuff, but that's not a good sign
Yeah, but
when you have
I
1,000
mean,
identical
you can
parts.
tell though when you're on a street that where the people tend to take pride in the homes they own, irrespective of whether they're actually connected to the dirt underneath them. And like I say, there's trailer parks aren't just one thing. There's actually a very extremely wide trailer park spectrum, all the way from the lowest dregs of society. I won't say to the highest echelons of society, but there certainly are some really nice, what you would call fancy places that still technically are trailer parks, because some people just prefer living that way for whatever reasons they have that are exclusively their own. And why begrudge them that? I certainly don't. But
We have a place up
so
here that's going to remain nameless, right? It is a lake, a relatively ritzy section of the county. It happens to fall in between two county zones so that a certain part of this lake permits trailers. And so it's kind of interesting that you're riding along and there's a $2 million house, a $3 million house, a $2 million house, and then a trailer. And another one, and another one, and another one right back there. And there's like 4 down over there, and there's 10 over here, and there's 7 right there, and then $1 million house and a $2 million house.
And there's been a lot of zoning changes like that recently since the start of this decade in a wide variety of states too, where they're saying, you can build a not necessarily permanent single family structure on a parcel of land that is already occupied by one single family structure. And the efficacy of those things is always just down to how well they are administered by the local housing authority or whoever it is that's administrating them. Scotty Waddles, you are the man.
Yeah, he's an absolute unit.
Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Here's my special song and dance just for you. Woo, woo, woo. Oh, Trump dance.
This one's for you, buddy. Nice.
Trump dance.
Proud of you. I can't remember how to take that down.
There it is.
All right. Okay, so. Oh, wow. I have a little bit of a video I'd like to show you because I just think it's the most Florida thing I've ever heard. And since we're talking about trailer parks, I figured it'd fit right in. Right? So check this out.
Super chats are flying hot and heavy.
Oh, wow. You're going to have to do more dancing.
I know, seriously. Good thing the Trump dance is easy.
Right? It saves us a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am. So there's this guy. Apparently, he got arrested for riding an alligator through a Wendy's drive-thru.
It's already my favorite news story ever.
I would have given him a medal.
Alligator through Wendy's drive-thru. What are they gonna do? Charge him for RWI?
Huh?
He is in Florida. So, like, I'm not sure what. Damn it! Do the right thing. Okay, we have a producer, folks. He's just not good.
Some days he drinks more than others.
I'm not drinking tonight. Oh, I probably shouldn't have screamed that, huh? So Disney, we hate it. It's been terrible. HBO's been a little bit better, but not by much. I'm rewatching The House of the Dragon. I'm still unhappy with it. And I've even gone inside my head, done some psychic surgery to myself to try to justify some of the things that I've seen there. Right.
Yeah.
And then they do the opposite thing. Did you watch House of the Dragon?
I actually, just as you did recently, have gone back and watched the whole thing again, and I found that my initial judgment remains totally unchanged. Especially about season 2. Just season 2 has all the same problems that the final season of Game of Thrones had, where you truncate the number of episodes from 10 down to 8, I believe it was in the case of Hot D, and then you're just trying to jam all this shit into the last 2 episodes, and that's really not a good look because you've spent so much of the season up to this point just treading water, not actually doing anything. People walking around through visions and dreams and whatnot, which is fine. You can do that stuff, but you can't spend half of the season doing exclusively that stuff and then not get to any big denouement or big crux of the story before the season ends, and all you're left with at the end is, ooh, the armies are marching in. We're gonna get the war that you thought you were getting at the start of this season. Stay tuned in 2.5 years from now. That's what we got from fucking House of the Dragon.
Say thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you very much indeed, sir. God, I feel embarrassed by all the largesse being shown by our viewers tonight. I'm gonna buy myself a new damn trailer park with all this money.
Damn right. We're gonna be your slumlords. Don't mess with us.
This one's for you, buddy. Nice.
Definitely got to get more of those. So alligators. Wait, no, we're not done yet because Mike is an absolute fucking unit. Check him out. I think he froze. Did you freeze or are you just stunned? I think you froze. You frozen completely, bro. Right,
that was me.
Now you're moving. Yeah, that's all you too, bro.
Are we gonna finish the alligator thing?
We are gonna get
This
to
one's
that.
for you, buddy. Nice.
Nice. Love it. Anyway, okay, so
Nice.
I ruin everything sometimes. I don't mean to. Homeboy rides an alligator through a Burger King drive-thru. Now, I want to know what type of shenanigans were taking place that leads to the fact that A, you're at a Burger King, B, you have an alligator, and C, it's big enough for you to ride that fucker. How do you get to this point in your life and not have asked the question before?
I would very much like to hear the story of the capture of the alligator myself, more than I want to hear the drive-through story. The drive-through story is a fun little touch, but I want to know how the son of a bitch. I mean, if you are drunk enough to drive an alligator through a fast food drive-through, I want to know what your level of liquid courage was when you actually corralled this animal and brought it to heel and got yourself on the back of it. And if you were able to get it through the drive-through, obviously it's being responsive to your commands on some level, is it not?
Right? What if you got a cheeseburger on a string in front of it? I don't think so.
That's the story I want to hear. This dude's like the Gator Whisperer. Fucking
I got nothing for you on that one,
CIA should hire him for espionage operations. We could ruin our enemies with these kind of skills.
You got to keep up with it, bro. These are different ones that I'm showing you. They're not all the same one.
Feel like I should take my shirt off at this point. Thank you very much indeed for all the many very generous super chats that keep flying in. I'm not going to say I'm embarrassed. I'm actually not embarrassed. I could take a lot more of this before I got embarrassed.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
Oh, that's good stuff, brother.
Takes a lot of money to cause me embarrassment. Just want that to be out there.
So I'm also curious how this man. What type of a bridle do you use? What is your motivation mechanism for training a riding alligator? How does it ride? I've never ridden an alligator. Maybe I'd like it. I don't know.
Did we not get any of that information in the video?
Not really. It's basically just the opening splash on Acorn Stash's thing, and it is my favorite part of the video. And I mean, there's another 30 minutes, 19 minutes of video, and another $49.99 for you.
I've got an article here from the Florida Times Union out of Jacksonville. It looks like it's probably the best we're going to do. You want me to read it out?
Sure, go ahead.
Dateline West Palm Beach. Alligators have been used as shoes, briefcase, mascots, as lunch, and now authorities say Joshua James, age 24, was arrested Monday and charged with assault with a deadly weapon without intent to kill after Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation officials said he threw a 3.5-foot alligator through a Palm Beach County Wendy's drive-through window in October. He is also charged with illegally possessing an alligator, Who knew that was a crime? And petty theft. Jail records show he was released on $6,000 bail on Tuesday. He was ordered to have no contact with animals. Insert rim shot here. Wildlife officer Nicholas Guerin said in his report that James drove his pickup truck to the window at about 1:20 a.m. October 11th. After an employee handed James his drink, he threw the alligator through the window and drove off. No one was hurt. Guerin captured the alligator and released it into the wild. Guerin said James was tracked down through video surveillance and a purchase at a neighboring convenience store. Guerin wrote that James admitted throwing the alligator in a December interview. He said James told him he had found the alligator on the side of the road and put it into his truck. James's mother, Linda James, told WPTV that her son's actions were, quote, a stupid prank. He does stuff like this because he thinks it's funny, she said. She said he meant no harm and had no problem turning himself in. No one answered the door at homes listed to the James family. Phones listed to the family were disconnected. James P. Ross, a retired scientist at the University of Florida's Department of Wildlife Ecology and Conservation, said a 3.5-foot alligator would likely weigh about 20 to 30 pounds, and its hard body could deliver quite a jolt if it struck someone. He said the gator's bite would be comparable to a dog's and would be unlikely to cause serious injury or snap off a finger, although it could tear tendons. Perhaps the biggest concern would be infection if the bite went untreated, he said. And here endeth the article. He threw it into the window.
Yeah, that's this is something that happened like this past week or the week before. This is a guy riding a freaking alligator. It's Florida. I have no doubt it occurred. You know, people get hurt by falling lizards there.
Man eats gator stories we got to keep track of. Jesus Christ.
Dude, I've eaten gator. It's not a bad feed. I mean, it kind of chews like chicken, but lays on your stomach like pork.
Yeah, I think the internet about this too, because there's
going
a
ham
story
on
here
it.
from 2016, and here's a story from last May. Let's sort these by date and see what happens there.
Are we glitching out, or is it just me?
That was probably me again, if I had to guess. All right, let me see what the AI robot has to say about this.
Certainly ask the AI robot. I mean, our overlords would be the final decider anyway, right?
It says, is a viral meme and satirical story about a man throwing an alligator through the window. And this was a story that took place in October of 2015, over a decade ago. He was arrested in fact. So apparently somebody just picked up this very old story and tried to dress it up as a news story with a couple of new invented details. That's my guess.
It's possible.
Because I like Gemini would tell me if a
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Dude's froze up. Absolutely. The way we like him is frozen. All right, so tell me, in your opinion, who is the most entitled live action Disney princess? This is going to be difficult. Go ahead and do a restart, bro. We'll get back to it in a minute. So the general premise of the show today was to do a breakdown of live action Disney protagonists, I suppose, not necessarily princesses, but that's
yes,
almost
I believe the set of criteria that I laid down was most insufferable live action of the present decade, which includes obviously mainline Disney plus Disney Marvel plus Disney Star Wars. And I only made one exception when I compiled my list, because I figured Rey Skywalker has to be in this thing. She hasn't technically appeared in any Star Wars properties since 2019, so I made a little tiny exception for her and her non-existent ass and her I'll stop talking about Daisy Ridley's body.
right. Let's just don't. It's not even really there.
It really
Okay,
is not
so-
there.
I'm going to stand on most insufferable protagonist, which you can argue with me about it being the protagonist in this case, because Chick Loki. All right, so I made the argument of Princess Leia specifically from
I think
and
we can play a little bit fast and loose with the protagonist thing, because I've got us that are. Come on, StreamYard.
Yeah, StreamYard's giving you fits, bro.
It is. But as I told you backstage before the show, if this is something the audience wants to participate in, I have 12 candidates, and I have assigned them seeds if we want to do bracket March Madness style, but I will just read out the names on my list. My 2 number 1 seeds, obviously they have to be seeds because they are the legends of the art form. Captain Marvel, Skywalker. My number 2 seeds are Mulan and Snow White. I watched both of those movies in the last 24 hours. They both came very, very strong, especially Mulan. She girl bossed more than I expected her to girl boss. She put in a very, very impressive performance. My number 3 seeds are Ahsoka Tano and Reva, the angry black lady from the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. My number 4 seeds, Yelena Belova from Black Widow and T'Challa's skinny little sister, Black Panther chick. My number 5 seeds are Usha from The Acolyte. I figure we can combine them into one. No reason to make 2 contestants out of them since they're the same freaking character anyway. My other number 5 seed is the Black Little Mermaid. And my 2 number 6 seeds are Cruella DeVille from the Cruella movie and Wendy Darling from, I believe it's called Peter Pan and Wendy from 2023, if I'm not mistaken. And I also proposed that we should rank these candidates across the following 4 metrics. Number 1, knows how to do everything, the Mary Sue factor, knows absolutely everything that the plot requires of her to be able to know how to do, and as we know, that's one of the tropes that features most prominently in these. Number 2, don't need no man for nothing. Pretty self-explanatory, because none of these girl bosses need no man for nothing. That's why they are girl bosses. Number 3, sort of a general metric for smug self-satisfaction. We know that smug self-satisfaction is the central defining character of the modern Disney girl boss, so obviously that needs to be one of our ranking metrics. And number 4, displays masculine qualities for feminist street cred. This is another thing that we see coming up over and over and over again in these movies, that you demonstrate what an awesome woman you are by doing manly things. How does that then become feminist? I can't say. I'm not educated enough for that. But there is all of my methodology for you right there.
So the young, cool, black thug Iron Woman, Ironheart, she would fit nice and snugly right in there somewhere. That definitely includes Chick Loki. Absolutely.
Yes. Chick Loki is not on my list, but I agree with you including her, because she definitely has a place in this competition, I think.
Yeah. I can't really think of anyone that you miss. I mean, you could use Black Widow as an analogy for every female in Marvel if you just want to skip the basic math. But if you want to do a Marvel stack all by itself, that bitch from what was her name, Agatha After All or whatever, Oh my God, that was the absolute worst drivel. I don't think I made it through the second episode at all. I don't even remember the name of the movie exactly. I think it was Agatha After All or something like that.
Oh, Agatha All Along, yeah. Oh,
All
yeah.
Along,
I guess she could have had a place in the immortal pantheon of stars in this competition. But hey, the spaces are very limited. You got to do
Right.
what you got to do. We don't have room necessarily for every deserving candidate, and some people are just going to have to take the embarrassment and get over it. But Agatha definitely could have been there. Scarlet Witch definitely could have been in there. I mean, she might be on your list. She's not on my list. She didn't make the cut. I thought she had just a few too many traditionalist qualities to be the girl boss.
You're not wrong. She is a superhero trad wife when it boils down to it.
It's domesticity and children and
All she wants to do is make a chicken pot pie for her little crotch goblins. If y'all would just leave her alone and let her do that, you wouldn't have all these existential problems.
I know, seriously. How difficult is this to figure out? Just let her have her little delusion, for Christ's sake.
Okay, so I think it's going to take at least 30 minutes. So everybody take that home with you. We're gonna actually stack them up next week, and we're going to do a vote in the freaking chat, and we're going to see which way this actually pans out on the long run. I accept your seed, sir. I have no particular argument on them. Like I said, we could accept Black Widow as vicariously every other female in Marvel, and most of them in Star Wars as well. I'll take Ahsoka Tano for 1,000, Alex. Substitute
we
that
could
for everybody else.
We could just start doing these head-to-head matchups and see how quick we can knock them out. Like for example, our first two matchups would be the versus the 6 seeds. So we would have Captain Marvel versus Cruella de Vil. Darling, I think there's really no contest either one of those. Let's just advance the two number 1 seeds to the next round. There's nothing to deliberate about here, I don't think. Do you?
I don't really know how this works.
All right. Captain Marvel wins. Rey Skywalker wins. And now we're going to do our number 2s versus our number 5. So one matchup, we have got Mulan versus the Little Black Mermaid. That could be a competitive one. And on the other side, we have got Rachel Zegler's Snow White versus Usha and Osha from The Acolyte. A couple of pretty exciting matchups, I would submit. So,
Snow White was so destructive, though. I mean, the level of entitlement isn't just in the character herself, it's also in the chick that played the character. That thing carries more stigma with it than the entire red pill industry.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that one's got to go Snow White's way. And frankly, I might not have voted this way yesterday, but after actually having taken the time to watch Mulan, she girl bossed to a surprising degree. I thought she did more and better girl bossing than I was expecting, and she is really. I mean, I've put her in a number 2 seed, for God's sake. I wouldn't have put her in a number 2 seed if I wasn't very, very impressed with her performance, and I think she probably wins this pretty easily. So I'm comfortable saying Mulan and Snow White advance to the next round if everybody else is okay with that.
I have no complaints.
Okay, so Mulan advances. Snow White advances. That leaves us with only 2 more first-round matchups. So we're going to have 4s versus 5s. So, wait, did I screw this all up? I might have screwed this all up already. Darn
That's
it.
what we do here. We drink and we screw things all up.
I shouldn't have had. So that was 4s. So we had 1s and 6s. Then we had 2s and 5s. Now we need 3s and 4s. So Ahsoka Tano versus Yelena Belova, and Chick Black Panther versus Reva from Obi-Wan Kenobi. That last one could be highly competitive. But
Ooh, that's hard. A chick Black
I
Panther
know.
had vibranium though. Like she had super tech and just wasn't using it for nobody. I think it's
I
got to
do
be
love.
chick Black
Oh
Panther.
man, I do love me some Reva, but you might be right. I think.
I mean,
I think.
this woman
I
could
think-
literally change the course of human history, but chooses not to, so she can make better sneakers.
All right, yeah, you've talked me into it. We're going to advance T'Challa's scrawny little sister. I've heard enough. So
Somebody really should look up that woman's name.
Black Panther advances. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need one more, and so we've got 4s and 5s. So the other one was, what about Yelena versus Ahsoka? I'm going to say Ahsoka.
So Ahsoka stood on the outside of a starship and batted ship weapons away with a lightsaber. That is the most entitled shit I've ever seen and made me stop watching that show the second it happened. I didn't say a fucking word. I just stood up and left with my cheese sandwich.
And this is a tough one because I don't think we've ever seen either of these characters smile. So I'm not sure which way. I guess it needs to come down to the secondary rating metrics. I mean,
Okay.
they both don't need no man for nothing. No, wait, maybe that is our dividing line because Ahsoka Tano did require training from Anakin Skywalker. So.
True.
And Yelena had all of her training from the chicks at the what's it called, the Red Room, the Black Widow place.
Yeah,
So
but they ain't got no man there for nothing anyway.
Yep, I think Yelena has to go through.
I think she wins. Yes.
All right, that completes the first. That completes the first round. Let me get the next bracket together real fast here.
We also still have to hate on Snow White because both of us watched that trash. It better be useful or I'm going to be very put out.
Almost $500 million was spent making that movie. They couldn't even come up with a good song, much less 2 or 3 good. You couldn't even come up with 2 or 3 good songs for the songs in that movie are like the absolute worst case scenario of Chat GPT. Write me like some stupid bullshit. It's like the kind of songs that you write for the World Cup or some stupid sports tournament like that. You know, just so embarrassingly cringeworthy that you know it's something that you just have to tolerate and get through because it's only happening for this one special event. That's the music in the Snow White movie left that kind of an imprint on me, and it's not a good imprint. And don't even get me started on the freaking dwarves. I have no idea what they were trying to achieve and how many iterations did those dwarves go through. It was going to be real people first, and then it's going to be cartoons, and then it's going to be like some halfway gray area between live action and CGI abominations. And I don't even know what they settled on in the end. All I know is that all 7 of those things are pure grade A 96 octane fucking nightmare fuel.
Agreed. Snow White, the 7 CGI abominations is my vote. Because, geesh.
All right. So
even Dopey, which arguably is the cutest one out of the group, is also a CGI abomination. Pure nightmare fuel. Yes, sir. Welcome in Awakened Reflection.
Black Panther is a 4, and Yelena also a 4. So our next set of contests is going. We will also have Rey Skywalker versus Yelena Belova. And who else will we have? We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to have and Mulan versus Snow White.
Ooh, that's a hard one.
Yep. All right, so let's take these sequence. Captain Marvel versus skinny girl Black Panther. How do we feel
Captain
about that
Marvel,
one?
every day of the week. Captain
Yeah, I
Marvel.
think you're right. I think she's going
All
to be
day
tough
long.
to beat.
Well, yeah, I mean, she has godlike power and girl boss syndrome.
It's true. All right, Rey Skywalker versus Yelena. It's got to be Rey. Doesn't it have to be Rey?
Yeah, that's got to be Ray. I mean, at least Yelena, she at least she did a lot of training. Like she spent most of her life becoming a super soldier. So, right, Ray picked up a lightsaber and said, "I can do this."
All right, now we're down to Mulan versus Snow White.
We're talking the Renee Ziegler Snow White specifically.
Indeed. I don't know. Oh, man, it's a tough.
Oh wow, that is. hard.
I've watched them both, and I think I'm leaning toward Mulan.
Yeah, I was just
Because there
thinking
was-
that.
You know, just because there was not any hint of any romantic anything in that entire movie with that character, and how these idiots didn't figure out that she was a chick, that's a whole separate subject that we don't need to get into. But in Snow White, there was, instead of falling in love with a prince, she kind of flirts with a thief, which I guess that's our new and better and more enlightened world now. But I'm willing to give that to Mulan. I think Mulan carries the day.
Okay. I'm gonna second that, but I can explain why. It comes down to the fact that she is such a man that no one figures out she's a woman. Even though looking at her, she makes the most beautiful man you've ever seen. Right? And yet she is so much more manly than all the men that are manning around that it's like Clark Kent with his fucking glasses. You just can't see her as a woman because she's so overwhelmingly competent. Whereas all Snow White really has is the power of fucking friendship.
Yes, and my if you had told me before I watched this picture that she actually solves the whole problem of the movie by just telling these guys that they should remember how to be nice again, and that's the battle's over. Bye, go home, everyone. Everybody remembered how to be nice, so we're all good here.
Dude, I haven't watched Mulan yet.
$500 goddamn billion. You couldn't buy a script. You couldn't buy a couple of decent songs. You couldn't buy decent CGI. You couldn't buy a non-insufferable lead actress. So, which begs the question, what then does $500 million buy exactly? I don't know the answer.
I guarantee you I could have found a better actress for that role with better singing ability with like $175 and a carton of Cools.
And you're right. I mean, just the whole matter of Rachel Zegler in general is such a fascinating mystery, because at some point several years ago, maybe a few more than several years ago, somebody at the Disney company got it in their heads that chick is our next superstar. She is going to be money. She is going to write us all checks until the day we die. And I don't see it. I don't see one single, I don't even want to say attractive, not attractive, praiseworthy. There's nothing about this Oompa Loompa looking unibrow having smugly self-satisfied, very obnoxious, shit-talking little bitch that makes me able to understand why a studio executive would look at her and say, boom, that's the future. There it is. Let's ride this. Go ahead.
She is just the right color of brown.
She's exactly the right shade of ethnically ambiguous.
Right? That is exactly what it is. It's the same reason they hooked on Kamala Harris.
She sits in exactly the right place in the multicultural Crayola box.
right? She is ethnic, non-specific ethnic.
And I love that they even invented an in-universe excuse for having a brown chick play Snow White.
Right. Hold on.
Might
Can
have
you
been one of
believe-
my favorite things in the picture. Oh, it's because I was born during a snowstorm, so they called me Snow White. Oh, okay, that's what we're going with. Hey, baby. Okay.
Did you ever get a straight look at her parents in that film?
Yeah, her dad he looked pretty Aryan to me. Had some blonde hair and some blue eyes. Is all I'm saying.
Like Viracocha type activity.
Yeah, but the mom was definitely, you know, one of the ethnically ambiguous multicultural Crayola colors. She was a couple notches sitting over from Rachel.
Might have been one of them white Hispanics we was talking about.
Oh wait, you know what? Now that I think about it, when they when they were showing to her two parents on the screen, I think I absentmindedly actually said out loud, "Oh my God, her dad married a Dornish woman."
Right? How dare she? And they
That's
don't even
exactly what it reminded me of.
Oh Lord! All right. We have to spend the last 15 minutes hating Snow White, but before we do, I do want to say this: it is pretty. Everything except the dwarves is pretty.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell they spent a shitload of money. And I mean, like you say, there are things about the picture that look good. But how do you not buy a script or a couple of decent songs? I know I keep coming back to those points, but by some accounts,
wait.
this go ahead.
Am I crazy, or did they auto-tune Zegler's songs? Am I nuts, or was that just a bad speaker on my TV? I swear that thing was auto-tuned. It wasn't badly done, but I swear.
I couldn't quite tell. I was paying more attention to actually how bad the song was versus how bad the vocal performance was. So I may have to go back for another pass, but here's the thing. That's the one thing about Rachel Zegler that I think is an identifiable talent. I think she's actually got a really nice voice. I don't think she shouldn't need to be auto-tuned. Did they actually auto-tune her? I don't know. I can't say. And
No.
that could be it could be a function of any number of things. It could be just a function of writing a song that's in a key that's, you know, not necessarily in the singer / actress's vocal sweet spot. So you might have to diddle around with it a little bit in post-production. And I don't know, it's still the awfulness of the songs that strikes me far more than whether or not the vocal performance was embellished. And who knows, really?
Well, I will caveat this. My allergies have been going nuts. My head feels like it's in a cardboard box and has for the past couple of days. So it could have just been my ears messing with me, but it was quite difficult to get through that film. All right, so I'm all for sticking to a script, right? You've got the script right in front of you. Every one of us knows the story. We all watched it as children. We all looked through that picture book. Magic mirror on the wall, right?
Yep.
I kind of feel like it was stuck to a little too faithfully after a fashion. Once you're going to break tradition and have the prince be a brigand, I don't really see why you stick so close to the rest of the material if you're just going to break the central tenet of the story of Prince Charming, you know?
And also, why not just use the original songs? They used one of the original songs. Why not just use all the
And it was
original
good.
songs? If everything you're using is such complete dog shit, what? Who is it going to hurt if you just recycle the old songs that everybody already loves? Couldn't that only improve the movie's word of mouth if you used the original, much beloved music? instead of whatever this dog shit, World Cup official theme song, world music shit. I don't even know how to describe that fucking first song.
I
Except to
really
say-
want to discuss it. It's terrible. But I want to ask you about the dwarves. So we
Okay.
listened while we weren't right, and they're literally hip deep in gems, jewels, diamonds, and just raw freaking wealth. But they live 8 miles away from their freaking mine that's full of like an unlimited amount of money. But at the same time, they live in a hovel that's a long ways away from the mine. Why? Why do they live so far away from where they work?
And why is she
Understand.
ordering them to clean up their own house?
Well, I mean, they messed it up. It's their house, though. So
And boy, isn't that a departure from the original narrative? In the original narrative, it's, well, we're willing to let you stay here and have room and board if you keep the place clean for us, which, seems like a perfectly reasonable arrangement to me. Maybe people might get mad about it today, but, for the vast majority of human history, it wouldn't have been seen as anything objectionable. But here we have Rachel saying, not only am I going to live here and I'm fully in charge, only my opinion counts, and I don't like the mess that you guys have left around here, so clean this fucking place up. What is this, a goddamn pigsty? What are we doing here, guys? What are the dwarves getting out of this deal is the question I'm driving at.
right. Okay. So I can see the benefit of keeping the princess around. I might have done it a couple of times myself, but there is a huge cost that is incumbent on the simp that keeps the princess around. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, you're not
let me put it
wrong.
this way. One day, regardless of whether it's her daddy, her brother, her cousin, or the freaking guards from the castle just over the hill, somebody's going to come by here with an axe or a baseball bat, and they're going to take their little princess home. That's how that works.
And she lays across all three of their beds, doesn't even wake up when they get home. Well, that chick sure has a sense of entitlement on her, man.
Well,
You got to give her that.
it goes further, man. They come in, clomp around downstairs for long enough as it takes for them to take off literally all of their clothes, except their small clothes, and go upstairs, go through the door, and creep up around her, only to realize, oh no, we don't know what's in the bed, and lock Dopey in to deal with it. The
And she's still out
who
like a
can't
light
tell him.
because she slammed like a handful of Xanax, apparently.
Yeah, right. And he can't. He's the only one in the group that doesn't talk, and so he can't tell them what's going on. That is a bit of comedic genius. Dopey being the one forced to do it.
Yeah. But why do we have Dopey looking so much more like his cartoon counterpart than any of the other dwarves look like their previous cartoon counterparts? Are they trying to keep everybody happy here? Or do they not know which way they want to go, so they're trying to go every way simultaneously? Is that it? Because I don't have any idea what they were trying to achieve with the dwarves. I still don't, even after having watched the entire movie.
Think about the dwarven reshoots, man. Originally, it was supposedly 7 diverse, ethnically diverse, and questionable sexuality individuals of empowerment, right?
Diverse, open-minded, empowered forest creatures.
As I understand it, and I don't know if this is true, but this was what was purveyed unto me. Apparently, whenever they were discussing who would play the live action dwarves, they actually sent out something of like an early casting call for dwarves. And one of the people that got one of these casting calls, of course, was Peter Dinklage.
Peter Dinklage.
And he fruited up about it. Like, how dare you send an invitation to dwarves to play dwarves, right? I'm a little person, not a dwarf. And I'm like, okay, but it's still an acting opportunity. And do you realize how big this fucking movie would go if you decided to play Grumpy? Like, that would be fucking the bomb, bro.
And not to mention, who the hell appointed you the supreme gatekeeper of dwarf acting opportunities, dude? Who the fuck do you think you are right now? That you think you get to unilaterally deny that opportunity to somebody else just because you think you happen to be offended right now. I mean, pull your head out, dude.
Right.
Fucking get a grip. What a
So let's
fucking
back
asshole.
up. Let's take a second ourselves and recast the dwarves in this particular thing. Obviously, we're going to leave politics out of it, and we're making Peter Dinklage grumpy because who wants to hear that motherfucker talk?
Yes.
Right? So I can't remember none of the dwarf actors' names, but dear God, we've got to have at least 2 black dwarves because that would be hilarious to throw in here just on its surface. If we could find a Polynesian dwarf, even better. Samoan would be the best, right?
We're gonna
Then,
need a trans dwarf for sure.
okay, sure, I have no issues with that, but we also should represent all the different types of dwarfism, right? And so we're going to have one of those progeriac dwarfs in there too, and that one would be grumpy.
Yes, you raise a good point, because if you exclude any of the types of dwarfism, then you are being exclusionary and therefore bigoted. So I'm
Never
I'm glad
mind
that-
that these are imaginary mythical creatures that never have existed and can't be represented on film in any logical way. We still have to use our percentages.
it makes just as much sense as pretending that a medieval European kingdom would be 50% black. But boy, they really leaned into that one, didn't they?
I'm unaware of any feudalist black kingdoms. I mean,
Who is that for? Why do they do that? I just don't understand. Who's it for? How is that making the world a better place? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
We didn't have diverse communities in Germany in the 16th century. I know you like to imagine that we did, but we really didn't. Most of the people in Germany in the Middle Ages were actually German, and they mostly looked pretty much a lot alike to each other. We're not allowed to say that anymore.
There were a few Prussians, a handful of Huns, a couple of folks from Switzerland, maybe one Frenchman or 2 cooking bread. That's pretty much it. Most of those
Prussians,
people were white,
some
not even swarming.
Bavarians, some Hanoverians. You know, you have
Maybe
a lot
a
of
Russian or 2, maybe.
yeah, and then you arrive at some little village in the foothills of the Alps, and all of a sudden, 2/3 of the people are black-skinned Africans. I must
Hold on, bro. This actually has some basis. You have to remember, the queen that's currently ruling is an evil witch. She's like one cat short of a cat lady. So maybe she went and recruited a bunch of immigrants and brought them here and make them be diverse.
And the absolute worst thing this movie does is it tries to make the user accept the central narrative conceit that Rachel Zegler is better looking than Gal Gadot.
Oh my God, right? Who wrote that script? Actually, no, I'm going to forgive it. Let me tell you why. The writer had no idea Gal Gadot would fucking agree to that role. You can't count that against him at all. When he was writing that trash, there's no way in hell he went. And then Gal Gadot turns to the camera. That never happened.
She is a very, very handsome woman, but
She is.
a great actress she is not. And
Well,
I don't know whose
I would make the
idea
argument-
it was to have her sing, but no more singing, Gal.
I would make the argument that she is an actress. Not a great actress, but she does at least have the capability of doing the thing and looking damn good while she does it.
Oh yeah, and it was a great bit of casting to have her play Wonder Woman, because she has all the different aspects of the physicality that you need to play that character effectively, and it doesn't require her to do very much talking. So that's absolutely perfect casting. Hit it out of the park on that one. But anything that requires more of her, that's probably going to be a problem going forward. I'm just saying.
It's going to be an issue. It's and I hate to say it, there's more than a handful of like Scarlet Witch. Take Scarlet Witch, for example. Scarlet Witch is almost flawlessly cast, provided she sticks to the fucking script. When it becomes those weird little head nods back and forth of the jokes that are tossed around during the fight scenes and whatnot, which are canon Marvel, It's just that in this canon Marvel, this universe of Marvel, it's a bit too much. It's on the nose.
And is it true they're actually making a second series of WandaVision? I heard it's that's what they're going to do, but we will come back and talk about that next week because it's time for me to do the thing that I do when the show is over. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for joining us here on the Blast Radius tonight. We sure did have a good time talking about all this stuff that we talked about. We hope you had a great time too, but we think you probably did, or else you wouldn't be here in the first place. We will see you next Sunday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, as we always do. We hope you have a great Monday tomorrow and a great Tuesday after that. Hope the time change doesn't get you down too much. Hope you have a very fulfilling, edifying, satisfying remainder of your week. Stay safe, stay sane. See you next time. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.
This one's for you, buddy.